Our past doesn't define us, but we do need to learn from our past to grow from it. Have you guys heard of the controversy surrounding Chidinma Adetshina, a South African citizen who is contesting for the Miss South Africa beauty pageant for the crown? She's of Nigerian descent, and according to the rules, if you are a South African citizen, you're eligible to compete in the competition. But she's receiving a whole lot of backlash because her father is Nigerian. We are stronger together as Africans. We have always been. This idea of division that was planted in Africa was planted by the colonizers as a way to manipulate and control. You would have hoped that by now we would all have learned that, but obviously not. Obviously, we may have made some improvement, but there's still a lot of improvement to do. I have the right to speak on this because I am African. I may not be South African, but I am African. And Afrophobia applies to all Africans. This is not coming from a place of judgment, but it is coming from a place of we need to do better. I mean, that's why I'm here, right? Let's talk about it. Have you guys heard of the controversy surrounding Chidinma Adetshina, a South African citizen who is contesting for the Miss South Africa beauty pageant for the crown? She's of Nigerian descent. Her father is Nigerian. Her mom, I believe, is South African, even if she was born in another country. I'm not sure which country, but she was born in another country, but she's South African. And according to the rules, if you are a South African citizen, you're eligible to compete in the competition. But she's receiving a whole lot of backlash because her father is Nigerian. And sadly, even the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, I believe his name is Mackenzie, has expressed support for the criticism that has been going on against Chidinma. Have you heard of it? I mean, that's why I'm here, right? Let's talk about it. The controversy started when Adetshina mentioned her parents were not from South Africa in her Miss South Africa entry video, and the criticism has become more intense as she moves closer to the crown. The Miss South Africa organization has emphasized the strict requirements on its website regarding Miss South Africa entries. Miss South Africa entrants must be South African citizens and in possession of a valid South African ID or passport. If an applicant holds dual citizenship, they must provide details of both on the entry form. A petition has been launched to remove Adetshina from the competition, and sadly, just like I said earlier, even the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Mackenzie, stated that they can't have Nigerians competing for Miss South Africa. Guys, the rules are very clear. The rules are very clear. The rule book was created by the same people who are now speaking from two sides of their mouth, right? You have to have South African citizenship to compete. Chidinma has South African citizenship. And so by virtue of the rules, she's eligible to compete. If you, and when I mean you, of course, if the organization, if the people organizing the beauty pageant feel like they only want people whose parents are both South African to be able to compete, it should have been in the rule book. Plain and simple. I do want to also state that this is very interesting that this kind of backlash was not given to prior contestants who were not of South African descent, but were from European or Asian descent. Example, Vanessa Carreira, who was a contestant some years ago, and I believe she is from Portuguese and Angolan descent. She didn't receive any backlash because she was She had the South African citizenship, and so by virtue of that, she was eligible. Nobody had a problem with it. So it seems here that the problem is that in this case, the lady in question is of Nigerian descent. It's a clear case of self-hate. It's a very clear case of Afrophobia. That's what it is. You would think that people would have learned from the past. I always say, it's something that I say all the time, our past doesn't define us. But we do need to learn from our past to make sure we don't make the same mistakes and to grow from it. I don't see how in this case, this specific scenario shows growth. And I'm not going to go deep into the past, you know, the racial past. But we know it. We know it. And it's coming up right now. It's coming up right now. We are stronger together as Africans. We've always been. This idea of division that was planted in Africa was planted by the colonizers as a way to manipulate and control. You would have hoped that by now we would all have learned that. But obviously not. Obviously we may have made some improvement, but there's still a lot of improvement to do. I have the right to speak on this because I am African. I may not be South African, but I am African. And Afrophobia applies to all Africans. So this is not coming from a place of judgment, but it is coming from a place of we need to do better. We absolutely need to do better. And I think that just as Chidinma beautifully and gracefully said, this has created an avenue for us to have a larger discussion. She's largely been quiet about the controversy. She has not really said much, but she has said this, and that's one of the things that motivated me to come on here and actually talk about it. Because I think as fellow Africans, we should all show support, but also emphasize the importance of our togetherness and of our unity, and how we have so much more that makes us similar than we have that makes us different. And even the things that make us different, well, they're still beautiful things. They should still be embraced. They should still be embraced. I was happy to see that some South African celebrities expressed support for Chidinma. I think also the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, also expressed support for Chidinma and spoke against the criticism and backlash that she's receiving. I think more people should be speaking out against it, and more people should come out to state support for Chidinma, because at the end of the day, for us to hope for a better future, we need to address things like this when they come up. For those who say that she is not South African, it takes us back to a conversation that I've actually had on this podcast before about people who are born and raised in a country, and how no matter how much you may disagree or may dislike it, that country is a part of them. Aside from the rules that clearly state that she is eligible to participate because she was born in South Africa, do you really think that she wasn't in any way influenced by the South African culture? Do you really think that if you met the girl and spent time and spoke to the girl, that you wouldn't notice her South African roots? Do you not understand that being of descent from a certain country is one thing, but being born and raised in a country is another thing? And when you're born and raised in a country, you're from that country. You're also from the country that your parent is from. Don't get me wrong. But you're very much influenced, you're very much a part of the culture and tradition of the country that you were born and raised in. We've had that conversation before in this podcast. We will continue to have that conversation, but I hope that everybody else also starts to have that conversation in their own environments, because the argument that you cannot have a Nigerian compete for the crown means that you do not recognize that the fact that she was born in South Africa makes her South African, means you do not recognize your own laws. And also means, just like I said earlier, that your problem isn't that her dad is Nigerian. Your problem is that her dad is African, but not South African. It's like, and what I mean by that, let me rephrase that, right? You're fine if her dad is European. You're just not fine if her dad is from Africa and not South Africa. Do you see the point I'm making there? You see the self-hate I'm talking about? You see the division I'm talking about? That's what I'm talking about. Honestly, I also want to say that this brings us to a larger conversation about beauty pageants in total. We're talking about beauty pageants all over the world, right? We are right now talking about this specific instance, but it should apply to every beauty pageant. If you have rules, your rules should apply to everybody, and not just when they're convenient for you. If your rules say that someone has to be born in your country, or better still, that someone has to have your citizenship to be able to compete, then follow the rules. Don't twist the rules to apply to the people you want the rules to apply to, but not to apply to those you don't want the rules to apply to. That's not very honest of you, is it? And I don't mean you know what I mean. I'm not talking about you, the viewers. I'm talking about the organizers of the beauty pageants. Those are the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who had the guts, when I say had the guts, to speak against this girl being in the competition. Those are the people that I'm talking about. You need to make up your mind about what your rules are, and who your rules stand for, and who they don't. You need to be who you say you are, right? Guys, as always, don't leave me here to just be talking to myself. Please go to the comment section, give me your opinions, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. If I have viewers and listeners from South Africa here, please give me more information if you want. Tell me what you think. Maybe there's a point of view that I didn't put into consideration. I definitely want to hear your opinion. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as you do that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, guys.